She raised her daughter in silence, watching her from afar, never revealing the truth. And now, on the biggest day of her child's life, she was told to go sit with the helpers. They didn't know the woman in the faded blue dress had a secret that would stop the wedding cold. Mika was only 19 years old when she got a job as a housemaid in a big rich family's house. She was quiet, hard-working, and never caused trouble. But one day, the man of the house took advantage of her. She didn't ask for it, she didn't want it, but she got pregnant. When the wife of the house found out, she was angry. But instead of sending Mika away, she made a shocking decision. The wife couldn't have children of her own, so she told Mika to give her the baby. Mika was heartbroken, but she had no power to say no. She gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, and the madam took the child as her own. Mika wasn't allowed to say she was the mother. She wasn't even allowed to whisper it. The madame told her, "You can stay, but only as the nanny. If you ever call her your daughter, you're gone." Mika agreed, because staying close to her baby was the only thing that mattered to her. Every day, she fed the baby, changed her, rocked her to sleep, and sang her lullabies at night. The child smiled when she saw Mika, reached for her, loved her deeply, but called someone else Mama. Mika hid her pain behind her smile. She wanted to hold her child in public, kiss her cheeks, tell the world, "This is my daughter." But she couldn't. She lived like a shadow, raising her own child in silence. No one knew the truth. She wore cheap clothes, walked behind the madam, and kept her love locked inside her heart. All she had was those little moments when the baby looked into her eyes, held her finger, and unknowingly gave her the only kind of love she was allowed to feel. Huru grew up in a big, beautiful house, thinking she had everything: loving parents, a rich home, and a happy life. She believed Madam, the elegant woman in fancy clothes and expensive perfume, was her real mother. Madam always took pictures with her, brought her to school events, and smiled proudly like a perfect mother. But the real truth was hidden, deep, and painful. Huru didn't know that the woman who truly gave birth to her was not the one in designer dresses, but the quiet housemaid who stayed in the background, Mika. Mika was always close, but never allowed too close. She was the one who woke up at night when Huru cried. She was the one who fed her, bathed her, tied her shoelaces, and held her hand when she took her first steps. When Huru fell sick, Mika sat by her bedside all night, praying and wiping her forehead. She sang lullabies to her every night, the same songs her own mother once sang to her. But still, when Huru smiled and said, "Mama," she was looking at Madam, not Mika. And every time that happened, Mika's heart broke a little more. She never showed it. She never let Huru see her tears. She just smiled, stepped back, and kept loving her in silence. At school events, Madam walked proudly into the hall, dressed in shining clothes, posing for photos with other parents. Mika wasn't even allowed to come inside. She stood at the gate, waiting patiently, watching from afar just to catch a glimpse of Huru's joy. Sometimes Huru would wave at her, calling her Auntie Mika, and her face would light up. That small wave, that little smile, it meant the world to Mika, even if it wasn't the truth. Mika kept her secret buried deep. She wasn't allowed to speak, but her love spoke louder than words. Every button she sewed on Huru's school uniform, every meal she cooked with care, every story she told at bedtime, it all came from a mother's heart. But no one knew, and Mika accepted it, because being near her daughter, even as a shadow, was better than being far away. The day Mika was sent away felt like the world ended. Huru had just turned 13, full of joy, laughter, and dreams. She still loved spending time with Mika, always running into her arms after school, sharing secrets, and calling her Auntie Mika with a big smile. But Madam didn't like that. She said Mika was getting too close to the child. She didn't like how Huru seemed to trust Mika more than her. One morning, without any warning, she walked into the servants' quarters and told Mika to leave immediately, just like that. No time to pack properly, no thank you, not even a goodbye. Mika was heartbroken. She begged to at least say goodbye to Huru, just one last hug, one last look, but Madam refused. "She's just the help," she said coldly. Mika stood by the gate, holding her small bag, her eyes full of tears, waiting, hoping to see Huru, just for a second, but Huru never came. She didn't even know Mika had been thrown out like trash. That day, Mika walked away from the house, where she had poured all her love, pain, and life. She walked away from the only child she had ever known. Life outside was not easy. Mika started working as a tailor in a small shop. She had nothing but her sewing machine and her broken heart, but she never forgot Huru. Whenever Huru's name appeared in a newspaper, maybe for winning a school award or getting into a big university, Mika cut it out and saved it. Her little box of clippings grew over the years, each one a piece of her daughter's life. She kept those papers like treasure. Sometimes she would walk past the old house just to look at the gate, hoping to catch a glimpse of Huru, but she never did. Mika stayed hidden, always in the background, just like she had been her whole life. Yet, even in her silence, her love never faded. She prayed for Huru every night, whispered her name while sewing, and smiled through tears whenever she saw her photo in the paper. They had taken her title as mother, but they could never take her heart. Mika kept loving, even when the world told her she had no right to. One quiet afternoon in her small shop, Mika was helping a customer adjust a dress when the woman smiled and said, "Have you heard? Madam's daughter is getting married to a very rich man. The wedding will be the talk of the town." Mika froze. Her heart skipped. She whispered, "Who?" The woman replied, "You remember Huru? That smart, beautiful girl Madam raised? She's the bride." Mika nodded politely, but inside her world shook. Huru, her little girl was getting married. Mika smiled on the outside, but her heart ached deeply. Later that evening, she searched online and found the wedding invitation. It was grand, gold writing, fancy design, and a picture of Huru smiling brightly next to her rich fiancé. Mika's hands trembled, her eyes filled with tears. Her baby girl was now a woman, ready to start a new life, and she wasn't even invited. No one remembered the woman who rocked Huru to sleep, who fed her, held her when she cried. She knew Madam would never allow her near the wedding. She was just the maid in everyone's eyes, but in her heart, she was still Huru's mother. Mika spent the next few days sewing a dress for herself. Not too loud, not too fancy, but neat, beautiful, and made with love. Every stitch was filled with hope and pain. She told herself she didn't want to cause trouble. She just wanted to see Huru smile one more time, just to see her walking in her gown, happy and glowing. That would be enough. On the wedding day, Mika dressed up slowly. She looked in the mirror, brushed her hair, and whispered, "You're not just a maid, you're her mother." She walked to the venue, holding her bag tightly, heart beating fast. She wasn't on the guest list. She knew that, but she didn't care. She stood at the edge of the celebration, far from the crowd, her eyes scanning every corner, waiting, just hoping to see her daughter. Even from a distance, she didn't come to claim anything. She didn't want attention. All she wanted was to be near, to witness this big day in her child's life, even if no one knew who she really was. Even if Huru didn't recognize her, Mika was there, because that's what a real mother does. She shows up, even in silence. Mika finally reached the wedding venue, her heart full of emotions. She took a deep breath and stepped closer, her eyes searching for just one look at her daughter. She didn't want to cause a scene. She only wanted to sit quietly and watch Huru's big day. But before she could enter, a tall security guard stopped her. He looked her up and down and said coldly, "Helpers and kitchen staff should wait near the back, not here at the entrance." Mika tried to explain she was just attending, not working, but he didn't listen. Just then, a distant cousin of Madam saw her and laughed loudly. "Why is she dressed like she owns the place? Is this some kind of joke?" Others began to stare. Mika felt small, embarrassed. Her cheeks burned, but she stayed calm. She didn't want trouble. She just nodded and stepped back. They didn't let her sit inside with the other guests. Instead, they pointed to a small plastic chair near the outdoor restroom. "Sit there," someone said. The place smelled bad, and it was far from the wedding decorations and happy music. Mika walked slowly to the chair and sat, holding her bag tightly on her lap. She looked down at her dress, the one she had sewn carefully with her own hands. Every thread, every stitch was filled with love and hope. But now, the hem of the dress was getting dirty from mud. Guests walked past, their shoes splashing water and dirt onto her. No one looked at her kindly. Some whispered, some rolled their eyes. To them, she was still just the maid, just someone from the past who didn't belong at such a grand event. But inside Mika's heart, she still held on. She kept her eyes on the entrance, hoping to catch one small glimpse of Huru. She didn't care about the mud, the whispers, or the bad seat. She didn't care if no one respected her. She just wanted to see her daughter happy, even if it meant sitting alone, far from the celebration. And though her dress got stained and her heart hurt, Mika stayed. Because love, real love, stays. Even when the world tries to push it away, Mika couldn't sit anymore. Her dress was already stained, her heart already heavy, and her eyes had not yet seen Huru. So she stood up quietly and walked toward the ladies' restroom to fix her hair and wipe her tears. Inside, she stood near the sink, trying to stay unnoticed. The room was quiet, except for the sound of distant music and laughter from the party. Just then, two older women entered, laughing softly and chatting as they stood near the mirror. They were well dressed, clearly family friends of Madam. Mika stayed still in the corner, hoping not to be seen. She didn't want anyone to ask her why she was there. But then, she heard one of them say something that made her freeze. "Can you believe the whole wedding, and still no one knows Huru was never really Madam's child?" The other woman laughed, then replied, "That secret was locked up for years. Only a few of us know the truth. Poor girl. She has no idea her real mother was that housemaid. What was her name again? Mika?" Mika's eyes widened. Her heart started beating fast. Her ears felt hot. She had waited all these years just to see her daughter from afar, and now she was hearing her own story told like a joke in a restroom. But someone else had heard it too. In the corner of the room, a younger girl, maybe 20 or 21, had quietly pulled out her phone and started recording. She didn't say a word. She just stood still, camera pointed toward the women, her eyes sharp. She knew this was not gossip. This was a big truth, something deep, something painful, something hidden. The women didn't even notice they were being recorded. They kept talking, laughing, as if they hadn't just dropped a bomb. Mika stood frozen, one hand over her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. She wasn't sure if she should scream, cry, or run out. The truth, her truth, had come out. Not from her lips, but from careless whispers in a bathroom, and someone had caught it. It was no longer a secret. Not anymore. The wedding was grand. Flowers everywhere, music playing softly, guests whispering with excitement. All eyes turned to the entrance as Huru, dressed in white, began to walk down the aisle. Her smile was bright, her steps graceful. Everyone stood up to watch the beautiful bride make her way to her groom. But suddenly, just before she reached the altar, a young guest, the same girl from the restroom, stood up and walked to the front. People began to murmur, confused. She held up a phone and said, "I'm sorry, but everyone needs to hear this." Before anyone could stop her, she connected her phone to the microphone system. A voice echoed through the speakers. "Can you believe the whole wedding? And still no one knows Huru was never really Madam's child?" The room froze. The second voice followed. "Only a few of us know the truth. Her real mother was that housemaid, Mika." Gasps filled the air. Guests turned to look at Madam. The groom's family started asking questions loudly. "What is this? What are they talking about?" Madam's face turned pale. She stood there, unable to speak, her mouth slightly open. Her hands shook. At the very back, Mika stood up slowly. Her eyes were wide. Her heart was beating like a drum. She didn't mean to cause any drama. She had only come to see her daughter smile one last time. She quietly picked up her bag and tried to slip away through the side door. But Huru saw her. She paused mid-aisle, turned toward the woman she had always known as her nanny, and said in a shaky voice, "Mika, wait." Everyone turned. "Is it true?" Huru asked, walking closer. "Am I your daughter?" Mika stood frozen. Her lips trembled. She had waited years to be seen, to be called Mama. But now, under the lights and eyes of the crowd, she didn't know what to say. Tears rolled down Huru's cheeks. "Please," she said, "I need to know. I deserve to know." And in that moment, the wedding turned into something else. A moment of truth, love, and pain. A moment that would change everything. Mika stood still, her eyes locked with Huru's. Her hands shook, and her heart beat so fast, it felt like it would burst. She had never expected this moment. All the years of silence, all the pain she had hidden deep inside, came rushing out with just one question from her daughter. "Is it true?" With tears rolling down her cheeks, Mika slowly nodded. The guests were quiet. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Mika took a deep breath and said in a soft, trembling voice, "Yes, my baby, It's true. She began to speak, her voice cracking. When I was just 19, I worked in Madame's house. I cleaned, I cooked. I did everything I was told. Then one day I found out I was pregnant. I didn't plan it. I didn't even know what to do. But when I held you in my arms for the first time, I knew I loved you more than anything in the world. She paused to wipe her eyes. Everyone watched, holding their breath. Madame couldn't have children, she continued. She took you from me. She said if I wanted to stay, I had to pretend I was just your nanny. I couldn't call you daughter. I couldn't tell anyone the truth. I had to watch you grow up calling someone else mama while I stood in the shadows, hiding my love. Mika looked at Huru, who now had tears in her eyes too. I never stopped loving you. I kept every drawing you made, every photo in the newspaper. I sewed that dress today not just for a wedding, but because I wanted to see you smile one more time. The whole room was silent. Huru didn't look angry. She looked heartbroken, confused, lost. The groom gently took her hand. You don't have to make any decisions now, he whispered to her. You deserve the truth first. We can wait. Huru stepped forward, placed her hand on Mika's face, and whispered, You were always there. I just didn't know. And in that moment, Mika was no longer just a maid. She was a mother, seen, heard, and finally loved. After the wedding was stopped and the truth came out, everything changed quickly. The video went viral, and people all over the country were talking about it. Many were angry, not at Mika, but at Madame. They couldn't believe she had stolen another woman's child and lied for so many years. The internet was full of comments calling Madame heartless and cruel. Some of her closest friends stopped talking to her. Family elders, full of shame and disappointment, called a meeting and disowned her. They said she had brought disgrace to the family with her lies and selfishness. Meanwhile, Huru was quiet. Her heart was full of questions, pain, and confusion. She cancelled the wedding, telling her groom, I need time to understand my life. He respected her choice. She packed her things and moved in with Mika, not to a fancy house, but to a small, peaceful place filled with warmth. There, for the first time, she called Mika Mum. Every morning they would sit together and talk. Mika showed her baby pictures, told her funny stories, and even taught her how to sew. Slowly, their bond grew stronger. Huru cried sometimes, thinking about the years they lost, but Mika would hold her and say, We have today, and that's enough. Then one day, Huru went to the media and made a short, powerful statement. She said, I now know who my real mother is. The woman who fed me, sang to me, and wiped my tears is the only mother I recognize. From today, I'm taking her name as my own. That moment touched millions of hearts. People clapped, cried, and shared her words everywhere. Mika, once a maid who lived in silence, was now honored as a mother, the real mother, by the child she never stopped loving. 1 year later, the sun shined brighter than ever as Huru walked down the aisle again. But this time everything was different. She didn't walk alone. She held Mika's arm proudly, step by step, with soft music playing and flowers blooming all around them. Mika wasn't standing in the shadows like before. No, she was beside her daughter, dressed in a beautiful golden gown that shimmered in the light. Her eyes were full of tears, but this time they were tears of joy, not pain. People in the crowd stood up when they saw them. Some clapped, some wiped their eyes, because they knew this wedding wasn't just about love between a bride and groom. It was about truth. It was about a mother and daughter who had found each other again, after so many years of silence, lies, and hurt. When they reached the altar, the priest smiled and asked, Who gives this woman's hand in marriage? There was a moment of quiet. Then, Huru turned to the crowd, her voice strong and full of emotion. She said, The mother who gave me everything, even in silence. Gasps filled the room, followed by claps and tears. Mika sat in the front row now, not at the back, not by the restroom, but where she truly belonged. During the wedding speech, the groom said, I am not just marrying a strong woman today. I am marrying into a story of courage and real love. The guests cheered loudly. Later, at the reception, people lined up to hug Mika and take photos with her. She smiled, still surprised by all the love. For the first time in her life, she was not invisible. She was seen, respected, and celebrated. And in that golden moment, Mika knew all her silent years were finally worth it. If you believe every mother deserves to be honored, Share this story and remind the world that true love can never be hidden. Don't forget to like, comment, and follow for more powerful stories that touch the heart.